Hello my fellow humans. I'd like to introduce you to my Patreon page. It has extra videos that you will never see on YouTube and series that will also be exclusive to Patreon. If you would like to burn your eyes out watching even more videos, go to the link in my description. Thank you for your time.
Tell me you can't stop here.
I can't drive through them.
Are you serious? Just keep going! Back! Tommy, go faster! We gotta go! There's nowhere to fucking go! Find an alley! What alley? These people that hold the fuck over! We gotta get off the street, now! That's what I'm trying to do, Joe. Okay, just keep driving.
Dad?
Oh, shit! Move! Move!
Dr. Newman, you're also an epidemiologist. I presume the prospect of a viral pandemic keeps you up at night as well.
No.
Opening with a reminder of how terrible the COVID pandemic was, just so we can all be properly terrified by the possibility of the even more dangerous fungal pandemic that's about to be introduced.
Everything wrong with The Last of Us, ladies and gentlemen. The first episode establishes the mood. You know, exactly what it should be doing, but it's bad because he said so.
Also, that 1968 title card might be the most unnecessary title card to ever title card. I think the plethora of cigarettes and 29 different shades of beige gave us all the context clues we required.
Coming from the guy who can't understand the most basic aspects of storytelling, this sin is hypocritical.
Also the third, Discount John Holy, 4 weddings and a funeral!
Discount Jeremy makes a pop culture ref.
Bacteria.
No.
You like saying no.
Would you prefer he said yes and lied? Is this show on Fox News?
I appreciate the jab at Fox News, but he's still ignoring the fact that this is a late-night program that is clearly meant to have comedic threats, which is why the host made that joke.
Permanently fixed on one unifying goal: to spread the infection to every last human alive.
Slightly more angry Peter Capaldi here must be a fun guy at parties. I mean, he doesn't really leave much room for optimism, does he?
Oh, shit.
Because you're using fungi instead of blood and different music doesn't make this any less of a discount Game of Thrones intro.
Except it's not a Game of Thrones intro. The map opening served to establish the fictional world of that show, while this intro takes us through the antagonist's growth. They're completely different. Of course, I'm not surprised that Discount Jeremy thinks they're the same. Based on his track record, he probably just looked at the screen and said, "Pretty colors with words on top, that same as other one."
Having to be reminded that 2003 was 20 years ago. If you keep making me feel like an ancient one, this will be the last of me watching this series.
So apparently the fact that 2003 happened 20 years ago is a mistake of this episode. I don't really know how he thinks that makes any sense, but cool.
And as if this title card wasn't enough, this shot alone is an absolute orgy of evidence that not only is this a young person's room, but also that this is a young person's room from the mid-aughts.
Okay, but how is that a sin? Seriously, he just says that the shot shows us some context and then throws a bunch of arrows on the screen. But how is that a mistake? If you can't justify the sin you gave, you shouldn't have given it.
Going straight from drinking orange juice to coffee. Despite all the warnings in Clerks 2, I'm pretty sure even 8 a.m. would be more appetizing.
Discount Jeremy makes a pop culture.
You get your homework done?
Pedro Pascal is not my daddy in this scene.
Discount Jeremy has a boner.
Concrete guy's gonna be there?
Yeah, they said maybe.
Maybe.
I didn't expect the Venn diagram consisting of characters who have a passion for concrete and characters who are complicated father figures would ever overlap to include Gerard Butler, Tom Hardy, and Pedro Pascal, but here we are.
Okay, and why did you add a sin? I mean, how did the episode make a mistake by having the main character have a particular profession? Why is that a bad thing? Jesus.
Sniff testing your leftovers. I mean, I know we all do it.
And let me stop you right there, because you just undermined your own argument.
Your t-shirt's inside out.
Oh man, that is so annoying. But at least his day can't get any worse.
This is one of those sins where Discount Jeremy says something that he knows isn't true and then adds a sin despite what he said not being a legitimate critique of the show. Now, you might want to argue that it was meant as a joke, but I'll tell you that jokes are supposed to be funny, and that wasn't funny.
Going through your father's drawers. Trust me, that is asking for trouble, and she's very lucky that the show's commitment to portraying a wholesome relationship conflicted with her finding, well, just go through your parents' drawers and find out for yourself. Men going through your parents' drawers and will not be held liable for any resulting injury, nightmares, or loss of respect for any family members involved.
Dad, you love biscuits.
I do. But I'm on Atkins.
I swear shows mentioning the Atkins diet is to the mid-aughts what beige and cigarettes are to the 60s.
Padding the sin count and runtime by saying some bullshit that isn't actually a sin.
Homework is due! End of class tomorrow!
Well, if the homework's due at the end of class, then that's classwork. There is nothing in that description that would encourage me to spend any time with that assignment at home.
Obviously, the implication is that they aren't going to be given time in class to do the assignment, so they will have to do it at home and simply turn it in at the end of class. Teachers do that shit all the time.
You should go home.
Panicking in front of a child and telling them they should go home, but not actually telling them why they need to go home.
Pointing things out on the screen.
I was thinking we'd make some cookies.
Chocolate chip?
Raisin.
That fake-ass laugh.
Also, I always find it odd when people spin this kind of religious rhetoric in the face of violence and death because the Bible might be the most violent book that has ever existed.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. The Bible explicitly endorses slavery, genocide, child murder, xenophobia, homophobia, and the list goes on and on. However, this is still not a sin of the episode, seeing as there are people out there in the real world who do this. Remember, the show isn't saying that it's a good thing, it's saying that it's a thing that happens.
All the effort that went into making me believe it's 2003 just to blow it all by including 2005's Murder Ball.
Yep, that's a good catch. If only TVSins could spend their videos pointing out continuity errors the whole time instead of going on mostly boring and cringe-worthy rants.
Dog knows that shit's about to go down before any of the humans do and is briefly acknowledged but ultimately ignored. Cliché.
Not only is that not a cliche, but if the show didn't have the dog do this, that would be a legitimate sin. The dog should absolutely notice that something is amiss before the humans, so you're sinning the show for having a grounded detail.
Also, sure, the dog's acting weird and whatnot, but what we really should be focused on is how horribly organized this bookcase is. It's fucking chaos.
More padding the sin count and runtime.
Comment today from the Austin Police Department regarding a rash of violent incidents across the city.
The only thing worse than using random news position to explain what's going on is having one of our characters not paying attention to the random news position.
Why? Where's your line of reasoning? Your evidence? I mean, if you don't present any, I can't just accept what you're saying. Besides, this is 2003, back when the news was a much more common thing for people to throw on in the background. Sure, if this was happening in a show set in 2023, I would question it, but it's totally natural for 2003.
Where's the cake?
Forgetting cake? What makes forgetting the cake?
Skip.
Also shows that pile on the undomesticated dad who's useless at looking after himself and relies on the little kid good at life routine this heavily are screaming from the rooftops that something is going to happen to said kid. And yes, maybe there were only 4 people watching this who didn't know it was coming, but they deserve to be surprise traumatized too.
Just because it wasn't surprising doesn't mean it's not a sensible and incredible character building event. Seriously, trauma is still trauma regardless of how surprising it is.
Mrs. Adler?
Because the TV, the dog, and the clearly freaked out shopkeeper that have all told me to stay home. Instead, I'm going to wander into my neighbor's house that has nope written in blood all over because I'm only smart when my dad needs to look dumb.
She's a kid who's scared and confused. What she's doing in this scene is looking for a source of comfort, which makes total sense when you take her age and character into account. Sure, she's been told that she needs to stay inside, but she also wants to set her mind at ease by finding out what's happening. It's totally natural.
Grandma Sophia Portobello is nice enough to stop chasing Sarah just long enough for Joel to show up, park, get out of the truck, grab Sarah, and get ready to attack.
You're being very deceptive right now. She didn't stop chasing Sarah. You just made that up. The reason she's so far behind Sarah is because, oh, I don't know, maybe she's really old and her body can't physically match Sarah's in a chase?
Get the truck! Right now!
Also, Convenient Joel conveniently has a weapon in his hand when he exits the truck despite having no way of knowing Sarah was in trouble. The fungicidal nanomaniac hadn't even left the house yet.
Dude, Joel just recently learned that a genocidal fungus has been infecting countless people and forcing them to attack others. Yeah, he's got a weapon in his hand at all times now. How the hell is that a bad thing? He's essentially traveling around Zombieland and you want him to leave his weapon in the car? What?
No one will be seated as Joel and Tommy decide aloud which interstates and highways they will be taking to get out of town.
You're completely missing the point of this incredible scene. Shooting the entire scene from inside the car and putting all of the dialogue in makes the audience feel like we are physically with the group, experiencing the beginning of the outbreak firsthand, from Sarah's POV. This scene deserves a few sins off, if anything.
It's Jimmy's place.
That might carry more weight if I had the first clue who Jimmy was. You couldn't have given us a scene with Jimmy instead of confirming that kids get bored at school.
You would have just complained about that scene if they had given us something with Jimmy, so throwaway sin to waste yet more time is dumb.
Head of the river, I'll find a way.
A way that wasn't climbing over the car, but instead had to result in the being separated. All so that he can Tommy X Machina them a few scenes from now.
Yet again, Discount Jeremy is deceiving you. He's implying that they could just climb over the cars, but that's clearly not true based on the facts that, number 1, Sarah is so badly injured that Joel has to carry her, and number 2, the cars are on fire.
I realize these aren't technically zombies, but there are still moments like this that feel right out of a Walking Dead episode. Maybe it's impossible to escape that comparison, but I'm me, so you're still getting us in.
Yeah, you still are you. The same boring, vanilla, unfunny guy who thinks that shouting out other TV shows is funny.
Yes, sir.
Military sent to protect the people from viral outbreak actually ends up mostly being there to kill people whether they've contracted the virus or not. Cliché.
That's an absolutely terrible misuse of the word cliché.
Oh, so now you don't give us a specific year. Likely because the show doesn't want to date itself when we get to season 4 and wonder why it's still 2023. But in that case, don't fucking date the earlier scenes. We know how time works.
No, you very obviously don't know how time works because you just said that we don't know the specific year. Aaron, if the previous scene happened in 2003 and then we jump 20 years in the future, what year is it? 2003 plus 20. It's not that hard.
Also, damn these sudden time jumps and their ability to strip all the momentum out of a story. Yeah, their hands were tied by the video game, but guess what? They're not. Do what you want. Wouldn't it have been interesting to see how Joel deals with the loss of his daughter in the opening months and years of the apocalypse?
Discount Jeremy is advocating for a show to stray completely away from its source material, which is a total slap in the face to, well, storytelling in general. This is the guy who watches TV shows for a living, and yet he wants them to abandon their source material. If you still think this guy is a legit TV critic, you're a dumbass.
This is clearly trying to tease us into thinking that we're seeing a fully infected individual stumbling along, but we know that the fully infected move quickly, so why give us a slow zombie stumble tease?
The infected don't always move quickly. That's only when they're attacking a victim. Stop making shit up.
Schindler's Red Petticoat.
Discount Jeremy makes a pop.
Oh, so now you're giving us the year? Then what was the point of the whole where they did the thing and the why is this even this is dumb.
Aaron Dicer is still pissed that he doesn't know how to do basic math.
Also, this is great information for the audience, and I'm sure it won't backfire when a snarky YouTube channel takes a screenshot to make sure it's totally obeyed by the show in the future.
Okay, but that's not a sin of this episode. If it becomes an issue later, then you can sin it later. But sinning the show for something it hasn't even done yet? That's dumb.
How did you get this?
And now we have another scene of a child dying to demonstrate how bleak the situation is. And call me a wimp, but I think 2 child deaths in less than 3 minutes may be pushing me to my HBO Max.
Discount Jeremy still doesn't understand or appreciate when a TV show sets the mood from the jump. I don't see how establishing a world is a bad thing, but you do you, man.
Or Lieberman shirts in 2023. And yes, I understand the world has been out of the shirt-making business for 20 years, but I'm not buying anyone was wearing those shirts in 2003 either.
He undermines his own point and then makes a half-assed attempt at a shitty joke to cover for himself.
I don't have a hard time believing that an overzealous military state could bring back the death penalty. I can also buy that they do it publicly to inspire fear and obedience from those pesky masses. But people still have a choice not to turn up, right? It just seems so strange to me that an entire crowd would turn up for this shit, not just the occasional sociopath.
Discount Jeremy has never heard of rubbernecking or morbid fascination.
Looking for the light in the darkness is great for the Green Lantern Corps, but in this world I imagine it's pretty terrible advice.
Discount Jeremy makes...
I'm not a firefly!
I just realized in this universe, the fungi infection spreading was probably why Firefly was canceled and not because of the terrible Fox executives.
Discount Jeremy...
Hey, there's a line.
This is the sole objection we hear to the man skipping a very long line of people all wishing to send messages to their loved ones.
Yup, and that's not a sin. I mean, if you would just stop talking and actually watch the show, you would realize that the people in this world have become much more harsh and aggressive over the years, meaning that only giving a half-hearted protest is actually kind of smart.
Joel managed to find his stash in a matter of seconds instead of having to inspect every item in the room, jump into some walls, pick up some random cup, retrace his steps, drop some random cup, restart the day, and then finally resort to checking Google.
Was that supposed to be a joke? I mean, I feel like it was based on his tone of voice, but it also wasn't funny, so it's kind of hard to tell.
Reading physical maps. I mean, the fungi couldn't wait till after the iPhone was invented in 2007? What a fungal ass.
For the millionth time in this video, he undermines his own point, this time by reminding us that the outbreak happened before iPhones were invented, but then makes a shitty, unfunny, cringeworthy joke to cover for himself.
Pushing your partner over to get in bed instead of just getting into the bed on the other side.
But she ends up spooning him, which she wouldn't have been able to do if she had followed your stupid advice.
Also, Anna Torv rocks in Isn't It Enough Things. That may be the biggest sin in television. Well, except for that 90s show. I mean, why the f*** does that exist?
Yet more padding the scene count and runtime. Yay.
Joel, listen. Robert is terrified of you. So you march out of here, all Clint Eastwood is going to get wind of it and skip.
How does she even know Robert is still alive? Remember that this f***ing happened.
Yes, and also remember how Tess looked at Robert's chair after the explosion and it was empty, indicating that he had run away? Oh wait, you cut that part out of your video so you could lie to your audience. My bad.
For 20 years and you get nowhere, you're not a rebellion. Just spray paint.
Because having people talk about the rebellion actiony stuff is so much better than actually showing the rebellion actiony stuff.
But they did show some action before, with the rebel sniper. Of course, you cut that out of the video so your audience thinks you're telling the truth. Regardless, either way, this scene is establishing the characters who are important in regards to the rebellion. You just don't like it because any scene where people aren't punching each other goes over your head.
Is this real? I believe it is.
That is not an answer. At least not an answer that would result in me agreeing to abandon what little semblance of home I have at the risk of being hanged.
Okay, but you live in a normal society where it's totally acceptable for you to tell cringy jokes and be a boring idiot. In the show's world, they have to grab hold of any hope they can to fix their situation.
Whatever you need, whatever it takes, we'll get her where she needs to go.
Scenes like this drive me mad. Kim's immediate and unquestioning commitment here just shows that we could have saved all of the time if Marlene had just opened with whatever is on the slip of paper instead of burying the lead and expositing us to death.
You know, it would really help with your understanding of the show if you actually watched the show. Marlene didn't show her the piece of paper at first because there were other people in the room. This scene shows us the sheer amount of trust between these characters.
I won't tell anyone about any of this. I swear.
Where are you gonna go?
This is a valid question. Where does Ellie think she could go? We're going to find out she's carrying the infection but not showing any of the symptoms, but anywhere she goes, once they check her with the scanny doodad, they'll shoot her on sight and not ask any questions. Ellie should know this. So seriously, where is she trying to go?
Anywhere that isn't in captivity? Dude, can you just think for once in your life? She just wants to be given freedom instead of being locked in a room all day, every day.
Episode promised a showdown between Joel and Robert, but chooses to kill off Robert before it could happen.
Yes, because we're getting on with the plot and the story. Seriously, it's like watching TV with an 8-year-old.
Do it. Kim, you don't have a f***ing ear on your f***ing head, could you please?
That fake-ass laugh.
You get her there safely, and they'll give you what you need. Fueled up truck, guns, supplies, all of it.
I know Marlene is low on options, but isn't promising Joel a truck and a load of weapons and supplies giving away exactly how valuable Ellie is to someone who isn't exactly part of the cause? She just said...
And I know what you're both capable of. For better or worse.
So, wouldn't it be better to trust one-ear Kim to get the job done rather than Joel, who might be motivated to hold her for an even higher ransom? Also, despite that, it sure is lucky that Marlene is spontaneously gifted with Joel, a man who just happens to have a lost daughter the same age as Ellie, and will use that trauma to protect her with an instinctual fury.
These two sins are hilarious. This scene right here shows us that Marlene and Joel have a history together, meaning that there's some kind of pre-existing bond between them. Add on the fact that this means Marlene most likely knows about Sarah, and it makes even more sense for her to trust Joel with Ellie. She's clearly taking a risk that relies on Joel's fatherly instincts. Also, between those two sins, Discount Jeremy clearly contradicted himself. So here's another sin.
You are all that matters. My team will not jeopardize that.
Well, that suggests that her team knows exactly why Ellie is so important. So how many fucking people know about this super secret? At least importance is becoming less of a secret and more of a this is definitely going to end up getting Ellie kidnapped and Marlene will wonder where it all went wrong situation.
The team they're supposed to deliver Ellie to knows about her. Nobody besides these two know about it in the Boston QZ. Seeing as the team they're delivering her to is bringing her to a laboratory, there's no point in not telling them. It would be pretty obvious to them.
Also, if Marlene was taking Ellie herself, why would she even need to risk telling the team why she's so important? Shouldn't they just follow her orders?
Dude, the team was bringing her to a lab. Even if Marlene didn't tell them why Ellie was important, they would have just figured it out on their own. Just because you're incapable of forming a single rational thought doesn't mean we all are.
What's the deal with you anyway? You some kind of bigwig's daughter or something?
Something like that.
Okay, I know I sinned Marlene for letting on how special Ellie is, but at the same time, now that she's trusted her with Joel and Tess, why didn't she just tell them exactly why she's so special? Like, what if they spot her bite and have a huge freak out and decide to kill her?
Marlene didn't tell Joel about Ellie's immunity because that would mean she would have to show him the bite. She was hoping that Ellie would be able to keep it hidden from them. This is an example of the characters within the show making a mistake, not the show itself making a mistake.
You kept saying like wake me up before you go. Gotcha.
Using Wham as your choice of an 80s reference.
Using your Sins videos to make tons of dumb references. And point things out on the screen.
Holy shit, I'm actually outside.
Neither Joel nor Tess thought it would be smart to prompt the child who's never been outside to not do shit like this once outside.
They obviously didn't know that Ellie had never been outside before. They were never given that information. Why do you just expect characters to know everything?
Really, man?
Yep. I'm doing this by the book.
And here's a great example of when it would be extremely beneficial for Joel and Tess to have some knowledge of Ellie's condition. F***ing Marlene and Ellie.
Again, it probably would have been better for them to tell Joel and Tess about the immunity, but that was a mistake that Marlene made. It's not a mistake of the episode. I genuinely don't understand why you think all characters need to be perfect. That would remove all realism from them.
Pilot does not contain nearly enough rearranging of palettes.
TVSins video does not contain nearly enough legitimate sins or comedy.
Oh boy, here I go killing again.